Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking to you about harvesting plants. Today I have lettuce and herbs as well as some pak choy and some amaranth that I'm going to be teaching you how to harvest. So first off, let's start with the lettuce. As you can see, there are outer leaves and then there are younger inner leaves. There's basically two different ways that you can harvest this plant. The first way is to cut your leaves on the outermost part of the plant, and you can just keep cutting these and coming again as much as you want. The other way is to actually cut the base of the head of lettuce all the way and remove the plant from the garden. And these two different methods have their pros and cons. And I'll get to that in a second, but first let me teach you actually how to cut both ways. So as you just saw, whenever I'm cutting single leaves, you want to make sure that you're cutting all the way at the base of the plant. It is very important to always use sharp scissors to harvest, otherwise you can leave jagged edges on the stem of your plant. That can attract bacteria and other things like that, which the plant has to fight off. And now the other way is to simply harvest the entire head, and you can do that simply by cutting at the base of the plant, just like this. And there you have actually a couple full heads of lettuce. Now, why would I want to harvest a full head of lettuce versus just cutting and coming again? When you cut off specific leaves, underneath inside the root system, parts of those roots actually die. And over time, this can build up broken root mass in your garden and can lead to you having to clean more often than usual. So I always recommend you get 4 to 5 outer leaf harvests before you actually want to just clean cut your plant and remove the whole thing, roots and all. Next on our harvesting list, we have some mint and we have some Thai basil. Thai basil, which is very similar to all the other kind of basils. So anything I say for this plant, you can do to all basils. You see how there are different nodes. So you have a set of leaves here and then another set of leaves here. And in between this leaf and its stem, you have this tiny little budding leaf right here. This actually also goes for basil as well. You can see it a little bit more pronounced where you have these offshoots coming out of every stem juncture. So when you are harvesting from mint and also basil, you will basically just be cutting at the base of that juncture. So if I cut right here, you can see that I haven't taken any other leaves with me, and I've taken the most amount of stem possible. What this will do is it'll allow these side leaves that remain to continue to grow. Now, doing the same over here on our basil, I'm going to try and cut as close as I can to the base, like that. And as you can see, I've left very little stem right here, and I've also kept these side plants from growing. With basil and also things in the mint family, this is very important to do because as some of you might know, these plants can get actually very tall and unruly. And so as you harvest the topmost parts of these plants, you can actually prevent your plant from growing into the lights. So as everyone can see, I have harvested these top points. This is something that you should actually do to your basil when you first put it into your garden. So once it has grown about 3 sets of leaves, you actually want to cut that very top juncture. And what that will actually help you do is create a basil plant that grows out and not just straight up. If you can imagine, your basil plant can get pretty tall and it can hit the lights. And if you don't do this early enough, the space in between your leaf sets is gonna get too big so that even if you did perform that top snip that I was just talking about, it's kind of too late and the plant has already formed this sort of Y shape and can, get kind of messy. Next up, we have pak choy, which is related to bok choy. Its larger Chinese cabbage counterpart is a dwarf plant that forms these beautiful heads. As you can see, we have several heads growing out of here. Unlike lettuce, you actually want to harvest your head all at once. Next is amaranth and chives. Amaranth is a large herb or leafy green that has these beautiful leaves on it. And of course, chives, which is related to onions, has these tubular leaves. So starting with amaranth, as you can see, it has a similar pattern of growth to the mint and basil, where in between the leaves are these little baby leaves. So in order to harvest it correctly, you just want to snip here right before that baby leaf. And as you can see, you have multiple leaf sets you can eat, and the rest of the plant will continue to grow up. The chives, which have a tubular leaf, those can just be clear cut from the base of the pod. So if you get in close to the base, just snip it there. And as you can see, the rest of the plant will start to grow. The fun thing about chives is because their leaves form in concentric rings, as you cut them, you might be able to get a second cutting of the plant by clear cutting it once and letting it regrow. This is a bit of a gamble, so I personally advise you only to harvest once.